Welcome to the PT Legends podcast, where co-host Dave Bess and myself, Scott Carpenter, share our journey and secrets of success. From our humble beginnings as personal training employees of a big box gym to struggling studio owners that have made every mistake in the book, to where we are now, the owners of a multi-seven-figure business operating multiple personal training studios internationally, and now coach and mentor to fitness professionals in 5 countries and counting. This is our story, and these are our secrets. Subscribe to our podcast, learn, take action, and build your own fitness empire. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PT Legends podcast.
I'm nervous. I think my wife, I haven't texted her what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah.
We don't even know what we're going to talk about until we actually clock in. She's going to be really nervous. This is going to be fun, but I'm anxious right now.
Yeah, well, we'll try to keep names out of
there will be no names mentioned in this podcast.
Try your best. But the opening question that we have for everyone listening out there is, how many times has the police, fire, or ambulance shown up at your business for any reason? And if you've been in business for 2, 3, 4, 5 more, you probably have some pretty amazing stories. You'd be amazed at the shit that happens.
Just get into it.
And it's like, what do we share? What do we don't share? Yeah.
You said it before we talked. Your first week.
Oh yeah.
In business,
yeah.
You had this situation.
This is great. So by the first week in business, I had not even quit my job entirely yet. I had 1 month where I had overlapping because I bought a business that was losing money. And I used a lot of the money to buy it. So I didn't have much of a security blanket to fall back on. So I had a week overlap a month overlap, before I left my job. So I'd have a little bit more income going in and stuff like that. So it was a failing business. There was literally I think we inherited around 5-ish clients paying $99 a month for group.
Oh, really? That's it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a whole nother story because there should have been more. There were 2 full-time renters that were paying only $600 a month, I believe. And then there was a part-timer who was paying $250 to personally train their clients in there. The owners actually were friends with one of the renters, so they shuttled a few clients her way that I found out about months into it, and that's a whole nother story and how I handled that one. But it was maybe 5 clients. That was it. So I was making $500 in revenue, however many thousand expenses. Yeah, pretty fair deal, right? So anyways, there were 2 full-time trainers. And one of them, I heard he was a bit of a shyster. And he played games with the rent and the money and the amount owed and things like that, all that kind of stuff. He also told all the nearby businesses that he was the owner. He also, even though the place was called Underground Fitness, he also had his poster right up on the window next to the door, full big poster for his personal training business. That's not a conflict of interest, right? So anyways, I told him that we couldn't do that. He's got to take that down. Of course, he was upset about it. But even before that happened, actually, I was there with employee number 1, and I think my wife, girlfriend at the time, and we were at that tall desk, and we were talking, and he was finishing up with a client. We were just in there, and it was later on because it was around my full-time job, right? And so it was after, it must have been 7 p.m., 8 p.m., something like that. And after he's done with the client, he goes over, he flips off the lights and leaves. I'm like, this motherfucker. This motherfucker. And so I just knew it was going to be a problem. I had already heard stuff about, right? So anyways, it came time where his rent is due by the 5th of the month or something like that. And I'm sure we closed on the 1st or something like that. I don't know the exact timing. So it was within the first week. And his rent was short by at least $250, something like that. And his first thing was to claim that, of course, that, oh, he paid the old owners up to whatever, which was bullshit. And I already gotten the statement from the owners because we all knew this was going to come. And I had a feeling he was just going to do whatever. So I had already prepared a one-page document and signed it. That was a formal, our business relationship is terminated effective immediately. So I had the conversation about rent, that it was light. And then he tries to go to that, right? The reason, like, oh, blah, blah. I'm like, no, it's already, see. He's like, well, yeah, but, I've been training fewer clients. So I'm like, so you just thought you'd just, make up your own rent then? He's like, well, I'm just training fewer people. So I'm like, okay, I thought that's how this was going to be. So here's a letter. I'm just going to let you know that the business relationship is terminated effective right now. So I know you have a few knickknacks in here, a couple kettlebells and this and that. So let's get that and I'll help you out with it. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving. He's like, he was done with the day, so he's going to leave. But he's like, no, I'm going to come back here. I'm like, you're not. I can promise you, you're not. He's like, no, I'm going to. He's like, you can't do that. And I've already paid up through whatever. I'm like, listen, if you step foot back in here, I'm going to have you arrested. He's like, well, I'm coming back. I'm like, let's get your stuff now. Okay, I'll help you out with it. He's like, no, I'm going to come back for it. I'm like, get your stuff down. He's like, no, I'm going to come back for it. I'm like, okay, well, I'll have your ride here waiting for you if you do come back. So I got tipped off that he was coming back in. I was still at my full-time job, so I had to get off work to go to the studio, and I got tipped off on when he was coming in. And so sure enough, he starts strolling in, and I'm right there in the door, and I said, hey, you can't come in. And he just barges through anyways.
Did he bump you? Did he shoulder bump you?
I don't think so. I think I had enough space, right?
Okay.
Where he was going to get in. Now, I don't play that though. I'm not going to live in fear that you're going to show up and do whatever the best. I don't mess around at all. So the cool thing about the doors there is, the door in here, it has the little switch on the inside.
Yep.
The one over there didn't. So it was keyed on both sides. So he comes in there and I close the door and then I lock it. So I lock him inside. And I said, your ride's going to be here. I'm going to call the cops right now. And so he starts collecting his things, and then he sits down at the table and puts his feet up on the table like he owns the place. So I called the cops, and the other renter was in there training a client at the same time. I'm like, sorry, I know this is awkward. Don't mean to do this, but here's the thing. He can't come in there and get his stuff and even leave, because at this point, I've told him that. I drew the line in the sand, and you know me.
Yep.
You cross that line, I don't play that game. So I'm calling the cops. I lock him in there, and we're just sitting there waiting, 15, 20 minutes. He's got his feet up on the desk. And even though I had called the cops in advance to let him know, you can't technically trespass somebody until they show up and do it. So, but the cops came so they couldn't arrest him, unfortunately. But we did get the official trespassing thing signed up, and if he ever shows up on property, he'd be arrested on the spot. But that's what I went through my first week of business ownership. And it was tough because I wasn't going to get the $600 a month either. Right? Which the business had no revenue too. So it was a bad spot. But that was my first introduction as a business owner. I got somebody turning the lights off on me, and I got somebody dodging rent, lying, and then I got somebody basically breaking and entering, and me having to call the cops on them in the first week. So that was the first occurrence of police, fire, ambulance showing up in my business, and it happened in the first week.
I did not know it was the first week. I had heard rumors of this story, but I didn't realize it was the first week.
Oh yeah. Oh, and to make matters even worse, so that happened, and then his girlfriend. So his girlfriend, I'd never met her because I barely know him, right? I'd never met her before. She was a nail tech in the same area. The kind of area is called Moon Valley in Phoenix. And she was a nail technician, and her license plate literally says, I nail you. So
Classy.
classy lady, and she sends me a long email and just basically blackmails me. She's saying that Moon Valley is a town within a town, and that if you don't give I almost said his name. If you don't give whoever his job back, and it wasn't a job, his his situation back, that she is going to let everybody know about everything and make sure nobody goes into business again. So she's that classy, and blackmails me without ever meeting me, and then threatens that. And so it's a good introduction into small business ownership. That was a lot of fun.
That was your intro.
That was my intro. That was a good.
Did you think he was going to fight you?
I actually had a knife on me just in case. I did. I had like little
Really?
spring loaded. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
And that wasn't the first time. If you remember the story where at your location, when you had to have an ambulance come, from that one staff member, we had to meet him later on at Panera. Mentally
I
unstable.
can't remember. Like, but kind of, yeah.
I had one of those on me too, if you remember, just in case stuff got crazy.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
This is why we're getting
you said
nervous.
I had a knife.
This is why we're getting nervous. Like, I don't know if we want to share all these stories.
I know exactly. Because
Yeah.
you said I have a knife.
Oh yeah, I'm not taking any chances with mentally. Like, I'm not taking any chances.
So, this wasn't. We didn't call the police on this one, but this is a really. I'm not going to say a funny one, but this was my first introduction to like, wow, crazy things can happen, and it always seems like the shit hits the fan when you're like at a family get together or on vacation. Like as a business owner,
Yes.
when you're there, it's like, okay, it's maybe not all sunshine and rainbows, but so I'm going to a little, my wife, they're big on St. Patty's Day. So this is a St. Patty's Day story. Corned beef, the whole 9 yards. And it was when I was working like a dog. So it was when I was training just, God only knows, 45, 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
It
You
was-
did
it
that
was
for a
back-
while.
For
You
a
did
while,
for a long time.
time. And so, and this is where sometimes you hire someone and they can pass the litmus test. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then something like this can happen. So I get a call from a client. And he's a client that a very mellow dude, and he is upset. Him and his girlfriend, they work out at the studio together, and he's like, so and so sexually assaulted my wife at your studio. I'm not built for this conversation. I'm like, what? Well, what happened? And so, long story short, this guy that we were training to potentially run a location commented about a certain area of her body and the artwork that she had there. It was taken away to where God only knows what was said, but something was said.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I'm spending probably 3 hours putting out that fire. The biggest learning lesson for me from that is this can happen any time, any day, and literally it doesn't matter how much trust you have in your employees, like it can happen.
It can
Just like
happen.
that.
It can happen. Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I still remember. Like I'm getting anxious.
I'm getting nervous because I don't even know what story you're gonna tell. So like,
yes,
oh my God.
that one was one that was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I remember that because you called me.
I called you. I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, man. There's
For everyone listening, I guarantee you have some stories that are just, they seem made up.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Like it always happens like when you're on vacation or this or that. Like my brother was visiting in here and we were at a hotel, day drinking at a pool when I got an email that I'm basically getting sued. It's just the worst, man. It's just the worst. Oh, yeah. And I remember having my family here for Christmas and this was nuts. So it wasn't an example where the police or fire ambulance did have to show up, but there was this crazy lead, I should say, that she came here and put inquiry. We did a
Okay.
consultation. This was years ago. And then also at a Scottsdale location and did a consultation. And she was nuts. But she tried to play each location off of each other on like pricing and said like one committed to whatever. We never did that. Like we
Yeah.
called each other right off the bat because like, hey, did that so and so? And anyways, this was when my wife was working here.
Okay.
And then she's just a little nutty. And then she was on the phone with my wife following up and stuff like that. And then she was like trying to convince her boyfriend. She said she'd give him oral sex if he'd give her the money to start. And she's like in her 50s and stuff like that. So like, she's just a nut. So we should have known like, this is probably not somebody we want inside of our four walls.
Thank God we have a qualifying process now.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank God for that 7-minute phone call. But yeah, and so anyway, she came to a couple sessions, and then she like ghosted us, and then she started periodically making phone calls about like I don't know how, maybe it's more than 2, but about like a full refund and more, and you owe me my, you know, that whole thing like, oh my cousin works for the IRS and blah, like just crazy nonsense. And then at some point she got a hold of my cell phone, and she like called me like at Christmas. I remember going up the stairs to my house, and she literally wouldn't tell me who she is, but I knew because this was all going on around this time. And then she wouldn't tell me what I could do to resolve the problem or what she wanted. She just wanted to call and yell at me, not saying who she was or what the problem was, but I knew it.
Unreal.
That's the kind of shit that comes up though. And any small business owners, you know, you have just wild stuff. Wild stuff.
What am I known as? The king of the reviews.
Yes.
We'll have a review and then talk about collecting some badass testimonials. Do you remember my bad review?
Which one?
There's only one. No, there's only
No,
one.
I know.
There's two.
I joke.
There's two.
I joke. One wasn't a bad review. This was when we had that yoga studio next to us.
This is a great
And they were
story.
saying how you had the only bad part about this yoga studio is that you have to cross the big veiny man.
So it was when I was prepping for my first bodybuilding show. I had the whole place to myself on a Sunday. We're connected to that little yoga studio, and I'm jamming to some day to remember.
They were technically subletting from us.
Exactly.
There's a wall, dividing wall, but it was a glass wall.
So she sneaks in. I had the whole gym to myself, so I mean, I got a pretty nasty pump, and I'm wearing my green society type shirt. I remember it like it was yesterday, and you know I'm in that intense kind of bro mode, and she comes in, so I tone it down. I'm like, oh, what can I do for you? But I'll never forget that review. So it was the big green veiny monster.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's not a bad review, but it was around the same time period. We had that lead come in, and we sat down at the desk. I'm like, tell me your story. She goes, I just got out of a coma. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? So she tells me this story, how a man hit her in the head with a brick. She was in a coma. And at this point, I was like, holy crap. I'm like, you're in the right place. We're going to get your fitness going. And you could always tell something was just a little bit off. In our training sessions, she wouldn't say anything. She would just stare at me. Stare at me like that icon. I could still, it makes my skin crawl. Like we'd have that eye contact. I'm like, how are you doing? And she wouldn't say anything. She would just stare at me. We're like 4 sessions in. And on the 5th session, this is a true story. It's a holiday weekend. And I go, hey, what do you got going on? I think it was like Memorial Day. What do you got going on this weekend? She goes, and we're in Arizona. And she goes, I'm driving to California to pick up some salsa. And I was like, why don't you get it shipped in? They don't ship. I'm like, okay. So she was driving 5 hours.
It's a miracle you ended up in a body bag.
No, this is one that scared me. Even to this day, I'm scared to say this. She might hunt me down. Like her eye contact was so just deadly. And so she ends up like just drops off the face of the earth but writes that review that I owed her money. I'm like, you only paid for 1 session. You were 4 behind actually. She's like, no, you owe me $500. And a jug of protein. She wanted to get some first form protein too. That's
nuts. Your head is going to end up in a freezer someday, I bet you.
I actually paid her the money back though. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
I told her, I was like, I do not want to mess with this.
Sometimes it's just not worth it, man.
Oh my gosh. But yeah,
it's not worth it. it's like it's that hard dilemma. It's like it's not worth it on one hand, but on the other hand, like I don't like to negotiate with terrorists.
No.
You know, so it's really tough sometimes
Wow.
because we've had it with staff like that we've had to fire for whatever reason,
Mhm.
and that we had one, it was drugs,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then it just became a different person like overnight, and yeah, I don't even know how much we're going to talk about that one.
No, yeah, that one was a tough
But-
one because that one was tough because I mean, this is such a kind of in-depth story because I really took up for him too.
You went to bat for
I
him
really went to bat for him
and gave him that second chance.
And then what happened? The ambulance got called in my studio because things happened and he came in one day and shouldn't have been there. And the clients are like, "We're gonna have to call the ambulance. Like you're getting ready to go down, brother." So, man,
That's a little bit heavier though, because like
that's heavy because that one it really impacted me because at that point I had basically what I thought was a perfect staff.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was really the only
Oh,
first
yeah.
time. Like I was like, no, like I'm gonna go to bat for someone. So, I mean, I'm sure everybody out there, like you had that employee that you wanted so much out of, and you wanted this. You presented this opportunity that is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and just continue to go to bat for them over and over and over again.
That's one of the hardest things is when you really want to help somebody
Yeah,
and you can see them throwing their life away,
yeah, yep,
and you try. And here's the thing, like you learn from it because we both gone too far to help somebody,
Yep.
and they're just going to burn you and burn you and burn you, and sometimes in massive ways. So and it hurts then too, you know what I mean? Because they'll turn on you
Yep.
and make you the bad guy when you try to help them sincerely in the most. And yeah, that's a tough thing. I want to talk about some of that in another podcast though,
So
because we've
yeah.
got some really
Yeah.
deep stories on that affected our business in a massive way. And we stuck our necks out and got them
Yep.
chopped off.
Yep.
We were going to keep this one light, but that took a turn.
Yeah, it took a turn, but that one's. I mean, the bottom line
But-
is for any business authority, you've hired some employees before, and especially with the type of environment we create, like we want to really go to bat for them and make it. We talk all the time, make it a family, and sometimes you see all the potential in the world for someone. They have all the potential in the world, and then they just drop the ball, and you try to force it. You try to force it. No,
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
you're gonna do this. I can do this for you, and you just.
Doesn't work.
Especially with deep issues, like the really deep things, and unless someone's really willing to change, there's nothing you can do. So
Nothing you can do. No.
just, man, that's sure. There's an ambulance all
Ambulance,
there,
right
all
there.
Mary. So, wow.
Ooh, the Scottsdale police one was.
Oh, that one's good.
Yeah, that one was something else. Again, there's a lot of crazy involved in that one too. So it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to share. I don't know.
Just
I don't know
big
if that person's
picture.
living.
We're like the
Big
highlights.
picture. Had to fire somebody. Should have never been hired. So, and this is a whole nother story, but at a location where we had the wrong person as a partner who just failed.
Oh my
Before
god,
we
I
did that-
forgot about that.
Yeah, vanished, poof, gone.
Yep.
Mental breakdown, nowhere to be found. Couldn't get him on the phone. Nothing. The guy running the studio, and he hadn't been there. How long? Been lying about that. So that's
Months.
crazy.
Yeah.
But what he did, he hired this person that had gotten no's at every other place and warned not to hire. And then it was not a good fit. And he had hired her anyways. And when he had poof vanished, I had to fire her. And I knew it was going to be bad. And she was ghosting me, not responding, unwilling to return my phone calls. And then so I had to let her go in an email. And I was fully prepared for the shitstorm. Basically, in the email I said I'm going to arrange. She had a few things at the studio. I'm going to arrange a place outside of the studio to give it to you, et cetera, because I just know the stability of this individual. Through shit that says she's going there, I'm like, listen, you're not allowed back there. It's going to be trespassing. And so, anyways, I had told Clayton change the locks, get the locks changed because she's going to show up, at some point. And I had to let the police know in advance, non-emergency number. Hey, listen, this could happen, blah, blah, blah. She shows up, sure enough, raises hell. She's there with her mom. It's like a Jerry Springer show outside of the door. So just yelling and screaming, and Clayton's in there. The cop
Place
shows
is
up.
locked up.
The place is locked with Clayton in there with the different set of locks. And she's demanding to get like access to the computer, right? Because she's got stuff on the computer. She's claiming all this stuff is hers. That's not. Anyways, so I'm on the phone with the police and Clayton. So Clayton first, he's like, the police is outside trying to talk to her and her mom. He's inside, and she literally changes personality types like 5 times, like a schizophrenic, to try and manipulate the police officer into letting her in. So it goes from screaming rage and threats to me to crying because she's the helpless female who's being victimized, to like everything. Like, and Clayton was like saying, he's like on the drop of a dime, tries a new personality, drop a dime, tries a new personality, goes to my attorney. I have my attorney upstairs. There's an attorney's office upstairs. She's my attorney and blah, blah, blah. She's demanding like everything. Wild. I felt so bad for the police officer. And like, he's trying to say like, no, he's got your stuff. He's wanting to give it to you, right? And she was having none of it. None of it. It got to the point where one of her clients arranged to pick it up from me because I already pulled it out of the studio. I said, I already have it out of there. And just wild. But I knew it was going to happen. Like,
I know
it's an unstable individual.
This is a more recent story to where
I've been through nutty things before. And again, like, I wasn't even made aware she was hired. So, and this is also still a while ago before we had things really smoothed out. So this crazy stuff does not happen anymore because we've got a much greater handle on everything in the business, every facet of the business. But we weren't always executing it at a very high level.
Well, you bought 4 studios in a matter of a year, and there was just
yeah, and you trust certain people, and like I said, the managing partner that we had just poof, gone, vanished, right? In a not a phone call, an email. Could not get a hold of him with anything. Had to deal with his wife to get equity moved over and get keys, and it was pretty nuts. And then find out, is pretty nuts.
God, these stories are just,
it's a little bit surreal looking back on things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the journey, and it made me a lot tougher skin because before I was very soft. You know, like we always said with Arrowhead, for 2.5 years, everything worked out. It was just so smooth.
You didn't have any problems, right?
Zero problems, and then bang, bang, bang.
And I always warned about things, right? And this could happen. You want to do this because this could happen, or
no,
right? And you're like, no, it's good. It's good.
And when it happened, it happened. But you know what? All of that had to have happened for us to build what we have now. And now we have such a stronger culture, and we're building a movement, with our staff and the end user. Like, there's still going to be situations with employees, but it's so much less likely if you can pay them their worth, and then you feel like they're part of a movement. So it's these situations. I would probably say we will maybe one more cop ambulance firefighter situation.
It'll happen. And here's the thing: it's not all about like they were to blame. Like, well, with cops and stuff, yes, but any drama that happened was not necessarily always their fault. Like the bottom line is we weren't near the leaders that we were, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I've always been pretty even keel, but at the end of the day, like I could have done things better. I could have saw these things ahead of time, knowing what I know now and all that kind of stuff. But you're right. Now we've got a business model that works, that has plenty of money, where people can get paid well, and they can feel very secure in their jobs, and they can know exactly what their role is and what it takes to be successful. So they can be very comfortable in their role, and we not feel like, you need to be better, because most trainers aren't that great at coaching or accountability or organization, and they don't always have to be. Like, we have very clear, distinct roles, and we can get the right staff member. You might have an amazing staff member, but they're just in the wrong role in the business.
Yep.
And now we can really get them in the right role, so everybody really enjoys it. Expectations are clear, and it's a very fulfilling job, and they can get paid how they need to get paid.
The fitness industry is so workout dependent, right? So
Mhm.
you're hiring people to dish workouts, and that in a lot of ways it sets up your trainer for failure. If that's what they're known for, and if that's our identity, is to be a professional rep counter, to run a small group, the trainer wants more.
Yeah.
The trainer wants more, period. So I mean, when we talk about that, the biggest thing that we've built is something that really impacts the end user.
Yes.
So now when you get that trainer on board, they know it's more than counting reps.
Our interviews are so much different now.
Yeah.
So when we put our ads out, when we interview, and we get to talk about why we do what we
Yeah.
do, and here's how exactly we do that, they're like, holy cow, this is exactly what I want to do. I just never knew how to do it. And you can take a million different ways of nutrition coaching and this and that and the other, and we're really ineffective at changing lives, but we can show, like, this is our identity, this is what we do. And man, here's the system, here's how we do it. They're like, holy cow, I want to be a part of this. And sorry, my nose itches here. Thing's vicious. Not very professional, I'm sorry, Dave.
No, I think Mama Beth said, if your nose itches, you're gonna have company or it's gonna rain. And we're in Arizona, it's not gonna rain.
It's not gonna rain. But yeah, so like it's a whole different story when we're hiring, and people are like way more invested in it because it is hitting on fulfillment. A job can't just be about the money. You need to have fulfillment in what you do, and we've got that. Our culture's there,
Yeah.
and we care about people, and not just say we care about people, right? We show it, they feel it, and on the client and with the staff. So it's pretty awesome now. We've come a long way. It's been a long journey. There was a lot of lessons learned, a lot of crazy shit that happened. I mean, we haven't gotten into some of the crazy client stuff, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've had to have ambulance or police on clients, something like that. But man, it's wild. It's a wild industry. I feel like the fitness industry attracts the crazies.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yes, 100%.
We get more than our fair share of per capita of crazies, for
Yes,
sure.
That's a stone cold fact.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
get this podcast released because Carrie, I can't tell Carrie we produced this one.
Yeah, I'm nervous about it.
We have our house, it's like Fort Knox. So Carrie is always like worst case scenario. So we have like this badass door you have to click. You've been to my house.
Yeah.
You have to click it like 9 times.
Yeah.
I guarantee we're getting ready to move to another house, but Carrie's like, after hearing this podcast, she's gonna be like, some of these people are coming after us. We need to like quadruple lock it. So
It's just gonna be like Rain Man. 1, 2, just lock everything like 8 times. Open the windows, close the window blinds.
Yep. Carrie, this one's on Scott. This podcast idea was all him.
I don't know.
But there's learning
Little
lessons for it too.
Yeah.
You keep on moving when all of once you build a culture and you put that real reason why you're part of this family, when you put that into it, you'll have less and less of these situations.
Absolutely. And people can be whoever they want to be in an interview, and it's still a risk no matter what. Sociopaths, they go years and years and years without anybody knowing, like, wow, this is the nicest person. And, they eat people and put their body parts in freezers, right? So, like, I mean, it can happen to anybody. But at the end of the day, when you have a really good culture and you're genuine and stuff like that, like, though the people who are insincere, they'll reveal themselves, and you'll find it a lot earlier, and you can nip it in the bud like before it becomes a bigger issue.
That's one thing I learned. You have to take action. We're talking about you have to take action right there with anything that if it seems off, it's off.
It's off. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're optimists, so we're like, we try to push that to the side and just look at the good qualities, but you can't turn a blind eye because you want it to work, right? I mean, the problem just gets bigger later on. So that's the main thing. But yeah, we'll talk about it in future podcasts. We'll talk about hiring in leadership and when you know you have to let somebody go and all that stuff in future ones. But yeah, that's pretty good. So I don't know. How many times has the police fire ambulance showed up in our businesses? Would you get, how many would you guess? Now, 7th Street's a different story. We'll just answer it real quick, then we'll hop off. But 7th Street's a different story, though, because we have crack addicts not too far, right? So sometimes
A brick and
they just show up with a needle and make threats, but or throw bricks through the window. We have a nice area that borders kind of a bad area, so we have our issues there. So that's an anomaly, because that's literally been probably 30 or 40 plus times.
Jeez.
But in the other ones, what do you think?
I bet we're cracking double digits.
Really? There's the bomb threat over there that one time. It was just a
that was a good one.
geocaching thing,
yeah,
right?
That was cool. Yeah, that was. And then the two girls, it was their glute days. They were like, let's finish this workout out. And I was like, okay. So there you go. Jack Bauer came and saved the day on that one. Yeah, I would say it's got to be 2 hands for sure.
Yeah. It doesn't Ridge. I don't know. Maybe like a couple here. Maybe. Not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah. So, but yeah, bottom line is every single place has had it a few times. So, hopefully we'll share some more stories like this too. Hopefully we won't get into details. Hopefully we won't accidentally name drop either.
I think we got out of this one without name dropping.
I think so. We'll edit anything else out that we missed. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful one. We will see you on the next podcast episode.
Dave and myself, Scott, would love to thank you for tuning in and listening to the PT Legends podcast. You can get direct access to us by joining our free Facebook group. Go to www.facebook.com/groups/7-figure personal trainer. That's 7-figure personal trainer with the number 7. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you can keep on learning and keep on living. Finally, if you picked up any tips whatsoever in this episode that you found helpful, be sure to leave us a review and tell us what you like best about it. Can't wait to see you on the next episode.